The story of spaces is the story of the dawning realization of an entire genre of art that hadn't previously been recognized as such. It begins with the struggle of an ad hoc group of artists and community activists in Los Angeles who banded together in 1959 to prevent the city-mandated destruction of Salvatore Diaz Watts Towers, an exhilaratingly impressive series of towers and sculptures that sparkle in South Central LA. At first, this group of enthusiasts, organizing itself informally as the Committee for Simon Rodia's Towers in Watts, believed that this public artwork was unique in both aesthetic and in genre. As the initial success of that first campaign gave way to a more sustained involvement with the Watts community, bringing art classes to local children, and looking for ways to link the inspiration of the towers to improving lives in the ghetto, Seymour Rosen, a photographer and one of the early members of the CSRTW, began finding evidence of other idiosyncratic sculptures, monumental either in scale or in number of components, first in other out-of-the-way places in Southern California, and then further north as well. This must be a California phenomenon, he reasoned, assuming that the post-war impulse to move to a place so radically different from the old cities of the Northeast and the Midwest would include its share of radical thinkers, makers, and builders. Rosen, who was piecing together a living by documenting contemporary art installations at the Ferris Gallery, photographing the Los Angeles Museum of Art's entire permanent collection, teaching classes and leading workshops at the Barnsdall Art Center, and documenting a variety of other art-related activities around Los Angeles, began to focus his free time on what he called folk art environments as a way to differentiate them from the increasingly popular public environments and installations created by mainstream artists. While we no longer use that descriptor, as in many cases these unique spaces are the very antithesis of the community-driven shared aesthetics and techniques that characterize folk art, we understand that by calling attention to their distinctiveness while trying to fit them into the categories that we then had in the art world, Rosen was beginning to formulate the identification of a completely different genre. So Spaces grew and grew, and its efforts expanded both physically and conceptually. It was incorporated formally as a nonprofit organization in 1978, and already by then, although its collections were heavily weighted towards art environments in California and the West, Rosen had realized that this wasn't a California phenomenon at all, but rather was not only national, but international in scope. And while in so many ways he was the most unlikely person to found an archives, his organizational gene was sorely lacking. He persevered, following leads to new sites, funding sources, and ways to interest wider groups of the public in these compelling sites, with which he had become increasingly obsessed. Seymour and I began working together in the early 1980s, and we co-curated an exhibition on California art environments in 1985 called Divine Disorder at the museum in California that I served as director. During a period in the mid-1990s when I was freelancing as a museum curator and management consultant, I took on development responsibilities for Spaces, and by 1999, I was substantially broadening Spaces' international outlook through my work in Spain and France. As Seymour began to sicken in the early 2000s, we talked of future steps, and we outlined priorities for when I would succeed him as director of Spaces after his death 11 years ago this month. Since the end of 2012, when the Spaces website, an initiative of the current Board of Trustees, went live, interest in this field of what we now broadly term art environments has jumped exponentially. Literally hundreds of supporters, from rigorous researchers to casual photographers, have shared their photographs, their texts, and their tips with us, turning the website into a crowdsourced resource that is available internationally. While I have worked intensively with art environments since 1973, I am continually amazed that I learn about new sites almost every day. In one recent week, I received information from New Zealand, from Cuba, and from the Ukraine. As we compile this data, we do further research, and I rigorously edit the text so that they meet our research standards. As of this writing, we have identified over 1,400 art environments around the world, and we have uploaded over 17,360 photographs to our website. As we disseminate this information online, we are also increasingly called upon to lecture internationally, to provide texts for books and journals, and to share our documentation for museum exhibitions, films, and publication projects. Our materials have been utilized by some of the most eminent museums internationally, from Paris's Centre Pompidou to New York's Museum of Modern Art, from the Smithsonian Institution to Spain's Reina Sofia, to Australia's Gallery of New South Wales, to the Collection d'Art Brut in Switzerland. For over the last 10 years, we have supported 97 research and publication projects all over the world. But identifying and documenting these sites is only part of our mission. Advocating for their preservation has been an essential component since those first days in Watts. One of Space's early successes was the 1981 designation of 10 California art environments as California State Historical Landmarks through a groundbreaking application that considered these widely located sites as a whole. And although we have disappointingly lost some spectacular sites to urban renewal, to family disputes, to vandalism, and to zoning laws, we have also had memorable successes, and we can point to successful advocacy campaigns from California to Alabama, as well as a variety of sites in Europe, particularly in Spain, due to my intensive research there over the past 18 years. We want to ensure that future generations have the opportunity to experience these environments firsthand and in situ, enjoying them and learning from their passion, the purposefulness, and the persistence of their creators. And now it is time for the next step in Space's journey. From Seymour's crammed apartments in Los Angeles to the Creekside offices in Central California, and then packing again, to now much more expansive facilities as part of the Kohler family. We look back on the arc of how this genre of art, enigmatic at first, became identified as a global phenomenon of idiosyncratic and personal expressivity. How a couple of boxes full of photographs about and paperwork about the Watts Towers have become the repository for hundreds of books, journals, dissertations, clippings, videos, audio tapes, and tens of thousands of photographs in every analog and digital format, docking art environments all over the world. How the efforts of a single photographer transfer to a small team of one full-time director and an evolving but dedicated crew of some 3 or 4 archival assistants who have managed the exponential growth of the archives and so many publication, research, and curatorial projects. And how the efforts of a few committed activists from Southern California blossomed into a worldwide community of enthusiasts eager to share their latest discoveries in a way that treats both the art environments and their creators with the respect, the dignity, and the awe that they deserve. It's been an amazing arc in all of these ways. And we are full of exciting ideas for new research, new projects, and preservation, and for ways to think about and to interpret these masterful and audacious works. We are grateful to the Kohler Foundation for recognizing the value of our work and our collections, and we look forward with our new partnership to accomplishing even greater achievements in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's Stacy. So Stacy Muller, our chief archivist at Spaces Aptos, will now present Spaces data, I think.
Yeah, well, a little bit, yeah. So I do not have such a formal presentation. I actually just wanted to talk a little bit about my experience at Spaces. A little bit more? Okay, good. Okay, thank you. I'm going to move this forward. This is my daughter, Ava. Ava was 6 years old when I started working at Spaces. And she came in, I have 2 children. Ava came in at 6 years old and was completely enamored with the art and the art environments and the work that I was doing. We had the dolls from Prisby. We had Charlene, who you saw up in the display at the Kohler Foundation, and she was completely enamored. And then I had my son, who came in, who was a little bit older than her, and was totally frightened by these dolls and characters that he saw and never wanted to come to work with me again. So it goes to show that everyone's different, and some people kind of can embrace art environments and the things that come from them and things that they can't. So when I came into Spaces in 2010, I was faced with this archive that Joe had described to me as a very small archive. She's like, oh, it's a small archive, and you know, it's nothing compared to what you've been doing in the California room for San Jose Public Library. And I came in and I said to her, this is not a small archive. We have about 70,000 images that Seymour took when you come down to it, between the negatives and the slides and the prints and things like that. We have thousands and thousands of documents that document art environments from all over the country, from all over the world. So our mission has been really to get it out there. When I met with the board, their vision was really, we want to make sure that this is not just in Aptos, California, where no one can access it, but we want to make it alive and real for everybody. And so that's why we started the website, and that's why we started digitizing. Since 2010, we've digitized about 26,000 documents, which are available on our website. Of those 70,000 images, I want to say we're about 50% through digitizing them, which is pretty great. Not every single one of them is on our website, but we've documented them all, and same with the documents, so that now that they're coming to the Kohler, they will have the metadata to be able to put them in some sort of database that will make them more accessible for everybody. And I think that's extremely, extremely important. You know, my experience working with Spaces has been incredible. I really was not that familiar with art environments when I came in. I have to be honest, I knew about Watts Towers, but I wasn't familiar with all that came with it and all of the environments that were out there. And I have so many personal stories that are incredible. I mean, Irene Hall's granddaughter calling me and saying, you have a picture of my grandmother that I've never seen. Can I get a copy of that? I mean, that was like, you know, I mean, I almost started crying on the phone just listening to her. Like, you know, she was so grateful that the website was there and she was able to find it, which is just amazing. I've met some incredible people being the archivist. I met Fred Scruton tonight for the first time, and I've been talking to him over email for 7 years. So I was pretty stoked tonight. Larry Harris, I saw Jason Church, and you're in here somewhere. There you are. I saw you speak this morning, and I thought, there's Jason Church. I remember having an email conversation with him. So it's pretty exciting. Of course, I've had my favorites. I really love the dolls. I love Irene Gibson Hall. I love Grandma Prisby. I love the miniatures. Henry Warren. I love Henry Warren. And then, of course, the whirligigs. Oh, my goodness. Again, I went to that talk this morning where Vala Simpson and those pictures, and it was just, I'm getting chills just even thinking about the talk this morning. It was just so wonderful. So anyway, I wanted to show you, I don't have a lot of time to talk. I wanted to do a short talk. So working in the archives, of course, we had the artwork that came here for the show. And the artwork was very personal for me because I was around it every single day for 7 years, and as was my daughter. So here she is with some pieces that you saw on the show, of course, in the last couple of days. There's some of the dolls that my daughter absolutely loved and my son was absolutely terrified by. This is my daughter and Sonia, who works for the archives. And this is Bruce, who is not in the show, but Bruce is a mannequin that shows the tattoos, the tattoo art. We were located, we just moved, but we were located at the top of the stairwell, and I used to keep the door open, and everyone would see Bruce when they came to the top of the stairs. And many people were very frightened. There's a lot of psychiatrist's office in our building, and people were not prepared to deal with Bruce. So I eventually had to shut the door. But Bruce and I had a very close relationship. And as you can see here, I love Bruce with all of my heart, and I miss him dearly. I hope that Kohler, you take good care of him. That's all. Thank you.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm John Foster. I'm on the board of Spaces, and I'm going to talk to you tonight about our journey of building a website that was built to encompass so much material. In the beginning, we had no idea what we were getting into. So, about 8 years ago, Spaces began meeting to decide, among other things, how best to present our nonprofit to the world. Realizing that so much of the Seymour Rosen archive was in file cabinets, folders, we realized pretty quickly that if we were to extend his mission and message, we had to be on the web. And there was no website. Of course, we wanted to get spaces.org, but it was squatted on by someone, darn it. So we ended up getting spacesarchives.com. So in 2010, seems like much longer time ago than that, we partnered with an award-winning design firm to work with us to plan, develop, and implement a website that would be flexible enough to continually add new art environments as they were discovered through the years. I've had talks with the designers and the design team, and the first hurdle was determining how the site would function not just in 2010, but in 5 or 10 years from then. So in terms of background, designers looked at numerous existing sites, and there are some people like Larry Harris, who was out there early. Hats off to him. Kelly Ludwig was already up with her website. And another site they looked at was Atlas Obscura, which was a worldwide site and pretty amazing for unbelievable information on unusual places in the world. So in the beginning, the design team started with 80 sites. Just 80 is what we fed them in the beginning. And eventually that doubled to 150, and all with very crucial information. So I'm going to sort of take you through this site. Now, I will tell you, I am a Mac guy, and this is a PC, so if I do something weird, you'll understand I'm in new territory. It's not too bad. We developed a site that was searchable in many different ways. For example, we determined that if you wanted to explore an art environment, you could search the online collection here, you could explore by map, submit an art environment, or browse environments by type. And also in the beginning, I remember the designers talking about wanting it to be something of a sort of a wiki approach in which people could submit art environments and things that they have discovered, and it would be a real fluid, ongoing thing. But that didn't quite work out because there's not a lot of us out there, really. So, but let's take a look here at searching the online collection. So archive. We currently house information on over 1,400 art environments from all over the world, and currently, right now, there are 768 art environments in the online collection. I have to say that I'm just going to say this now before I possibly forget, for just reasons of stupidity, to say that I don't know what we would have done without Joe Farb Hernandez as executive director. She has been involved in this for so long, and she knows this stuff intimately. And she was involved in this stuff when I was still wet behind the ears. I'm not saying that I'm older than her or she's older than me, but I'm just saying she's been in this a long time, way before a lot of people. And she worked closely with Seymour. So I just have to give a shout out to her. I don't know where we'd be without her. So we can search by keywords and or review all art environments. We go back to that, and let's see where we are. We can explore by map. I'm at the mercy of the web, of the internet. So we can enter a location or click on a particular place, and you can see what's going on anywhere. So this site is very slow to load, but in depth. I'd like to take you now to, as you can see here, it is chock full of environments. People can search intuitively. They may see an art site and go, this looks interesting. I think I'll check this out. And here we are at Kim Fahey's Phonehenge, which we heard about today. And we have images uploaded. Where people can leave a comment and about the artisan site, and there is a place for discussion as well. Okay. Now let me go back to under resources. We developed a toolbox, and let me find that, Saving and Preserving Toolbox. This was developed by Lisa Stone, who really put a lot of work into this. I'm sorry? And Rich Gabe. Yes, thank you. And so it was designed to help anyone to have the resources to go into and how to save and preserve a local art environment that you might be that's in your area. So it's all the steps, what to do, what elements are to be considered in preparing to launch a preservation site, all of the things that you'll need to navigate that world if you're involved in that complicated effort. So it's very thorough, and they spent a lot of time on that. And so one of the latest things we developed was this new information bar at the top. So here we can launch new information that's very timely. For example, we are at this moment searching for a new media and communications director, coordinator. So this is that information that is there. You can also check the blog. So here's a very timely piece about sustainability in Marin County. Videos are uploaded. It's a deep, deep site that we've all worked very hard on. We're going to really miss our media content director, Jenna Joy Jameson, who's stepping down, and so we're looking for a new person. We'll really miss her. And so we began this effort 8-9 years ago with just 100 art environments. Now there are over 750 sites with essays, information, multiple photographs, data of all kinds, and over 17,000 photographs are part of this website. So go to spacesarchive.com, .org, excuse me, and see and check us out. Thank you.
Okay, well, you see who I am. I have no pictures of me kissing anything. I am the junior member of the Spaces Board, and which I guess qualifies me to try to look forward to the future a little bit. Although first we need to set the scene a little bit. I think, and we've seen a lot of this today, this week. We like to think of environments this way or this way, thanks to the Kohlers. We can. Or this way, Coral Castle in Florida, also very well preserved, a very pleasant place to visit. Unfortunately, not all environments get the same loving care. So often they can look like this, which is Margaret's Grocery, which has been getting a little bit of attention recently, which is great. But they can also look like this, which is the E.T. Wickham site in north central Tennessee, which this photo is probably 25 years old. The ruination is probably worse. But it was really one of the most beautiful environments I've ever visited, and also one of the saddest places anywhere I've ever visited, partly because of the ruination, but quite lovely. Or they can look like this, which is the Cross House in Chicago, Illinois, which I'll come back to in just a minute. We know that when art is outside, it will decay, and if uncared for, will vanish. Even if cared for, it can decay and vanish. So spaces, to me, much of the value of spaces is where we can compile all that we know about these sites, whether they're extant, non-extant, or otherwise. And the incredible power of the internet is that it gives us access. Whether we're using it for entertainment, for education, for trip planning, which it's very good for, and for research, which is, in many ways, the most important function it will serve in the long run, as a easily worldwide accessible location to find out what we hope will be everything there is to know about these environments. So you've already heard this now multiple times. I will point out it is a monumental task as a web publishing professional myself and a web publishing amateur in my off hours. The amount of work it takes to just put up a handful of photos on the internet is much more than you would ever imagine. You can ask me or Kelly Ludwig or Larry Harris or any of the Spaces people afterwards. Much more time consuming than you would think. Doesn't matter what tools you have available. And I think it is a testimony to the organizational skills and the diligence of the team at Spaces that they've been able to do this. It really is extremely impressive, which is relevant for the future. But we know the work isn't done. As Joe says, new sites are being discovered, new source material is arriving all the time, new photos are being posted. These are just recently added from the website. And we know there are hundreds of sites that still need to be added online. Some of them are new discoveries, or at least new discoveries in the Spaces world. The two on the right are from Italy. The one on the left is newish discovery. That's in Ohio. If you like Jesse Howard, you would like that house. a little more single-minded in his craziness, but it's really a fascinating location. I had the good fortune to see it last year. This is the Cross House as it was in Chicago. That is a lovely Jim Zanzi photo. Thank you, Jim. That was the owner's car in front. Very important site in Chicago. I mean, if you were interested in this kind of work in Chicago, you went by the Cross House, and it's completely gone. It's vanished. And this is relevant to the future of the Spaces website. It's not on the website, which frustrated me when I was looking for a photo for this presentation and for some other work I'm doing. And it's not the only site that's not on the website yet. And it's not due to lack of diligence. It's due to it takes time and effort, and they haven't gotten to it yet. And there are other sites that are still around, or sites that are lesser known, like this whirligig garden in front of a house in San Diego that is, you know, I've never seen anyone really write about this. There's handmade stuff as well as the commercial whirligigs scattered through that yard. You know, now these sites may not all get this kind of treatment that the watchtowers get. I mean, this is, you know, there's a reason why there's thousands and thousands of documents to be digitized about watchtowers, but they all need to get our attention. And even many of the major sites that are already on the Spaces website, there's a lot more depth that we can go to. There's a lot more material that can be added about those sites. And again, it's important if you view this as a tool for research in terms of being comprehensive and as complete as we can make it. So that's part of the future. And then just to add to the burden, the other part of the future is, and there are new ways to document them. This showed up fairly recently, I think, which is a virtual tour of Pasaquan. You know, using immersive video, you know, relatively new technology. God help us, we're going to start hearing about the need to do augmented reality, media, and all the rest. But the point is that the work of Spaces, as enormous as the work that has been done to date is, there is an equal amount of work that needs to follow. So when we look at the future we hope will be, and needs to continue to be, enriching the website and continuing to add to the kinds of content and to the comprehensiveness of this website, so that if you're looking for any environment in the world, you'll be able to find it in this location. And you know, I'm very confident that under the Kohler Foundation and leadership, that this is what we will see continue, the same good work that we've seen the last few years. And with that, I am done, and I will turn it over to Lisa.
Thank you, Bill. That's me. And so it shouldn't be news to anyone at this point in the conference that I'm really interested in the way contemporary artists are responding to art environments. And I just wanted to show some work from some artists who have responded to work that is not necessarily known in art schools and so forth in this genre, and that is quite marginalized in other ways. And works of art by students who are seeing works on Spaces website. They're not experiencing the sites in person in situ. They're seeing photographs and information on the web or in class lectures or otherwise. So I just thought I'd go through a few things and talk about the kinds of ways that artists pick up on and respond to visual material that they see and absorb and think about and organize and then make work out of. Someone that's a former student who had lost part of her whole family in a tragedy, just by being in a class and looking online and seeing that Emery Blagden's healing machine existed. It gave her a lifeline and a rope back to, through a long process of healing. And she did beautiful work, quite a wonderful large book, just based on seeing things online on Spaces website. Other things are more ephemeral. Edward Cabral, who is actually very talented cake maker, and we have really good projects, and sometimes they're edible. In class, just made this really great cake from the Watts Towers. Or students that are seeing things that are really sublime and very replete, and then just in a glance making another representation of that kind of thing. And I'm really just concerned about the kind of generative possibility of working with this genre, of having the Spaces website, of having all of the things that Spaces Aptos has done, that Spaces Kohler is assuming that we're doing as a partnership for a while till it all moves over to Wisconsin. And just to know that there are so many ways. It's not always the technical aspects of preservation. It's not always the political. It's not always the real estate. It's not always whatever Terry does day by day. But it's students looking at these things. And again, I'm saying none of these students have seen any of these sites in person. They're just responding to the material as the history of art. And I will have to tell you that students are dumbfounded by Loy Boland's Holy Beautiful, beautiful Holy Jewel home in so many ways. We've got another cake on the left. We have many students. I don't know why students just see this image online and then they have to go home and buy some glitter and do it. And they're like, then they tell you how hard it is to do it. That is not easy. I have not tried it yet. Oh shoot, this slide is really weird. But Molly O'Connell, you can see a little bit in this slide, has become Rhinestone, and with any luck, this will work. She also wrote a song and recorded it.
Rhinestone.
A little bit.
Cowboy. Here we go. Now what we got here is a tale about Loy Boland. A man with sorrows thick and joys all but stolen. Perhaps Newdeer Glen gave him the idea. A way to make things right, to take the wheel and steer. He'd seen the darkened life, been swerving down with strife, starting to lose his grip, way down in Mississippi. Armed with glitter and glue, he knew what to do in a suit of stone. He'll build the Holy Jewel home, shimmering walls of green, red, yellow, and
Okay, we
coarse
can't
blue.
listen to the whole thing because
You
I'm not
swear
allowed
you're
to take more
swimming
than
in a
2
whole-
minutes, and I already have. But then we also have students that do things like in a real life kind of specific way, like Jonas Saburis and his wife Emily using the text on Jesse Howard's My Family record for their wedding vows. That's deep. That's beautiful, and that's Alex in the background. Or Alex Gardelman and Joseph Sabura being so inspired, not just by Jesse Howard, and that connection is really obvious, but by a lot of other aspects which they considered to be really sacred spaces, really charged personal spaces. So they created this I don't even know if I'm supposed to call it a skateboard ramp. It's called Church. That was on view at the John Michael Kohler Arts Center a couple of years ago, but very informed by, as you can see, Jesse Howard. So you actually never know where anything's going to go or what's going to happen, but the joy of having access to this material and having really deep access to excellent high-end information about the material which the Spaces website has strived to present is just so exciting. I love here how Xuan Go wrote, "It is happy to find out that there are lots of artists keeping their dream and never stop building their dreaming space or even using their entire life to finish their wonderland. She was so moved by seeing images online of Leonard Knight's Salvation Mountain. She became Salvation Mountain. So with that, I will turn this over to Terry Yoho and Karen Patterson, I think. And we are celebrating this wonderful partnership and transfer of Spaces Aptos to Spaces Color. And I couldn't think of any better outcome, past, present, or future for this.
Thank you, Lisa. Well, a huge thank you to the board and the staff, and of course Joe Farb Hernandez, for what you have built from Seymour's dream. It is an amazing thing, and we are honored and humbled by even being considered to be the new home for Spaces. And we make a sincere promise that through this strategic alliance with the John Michael Kohler Art Center, we are going to make this as seamless as possible, but to continue to develop and grow Spaces so that it is just a viable and tool that you use every day in your lives for work, but for fun too. So we would like to raise our glasses.
Well, okay. I do want to say that this has been an excellent conference of the most wonderful weirdos I have ever been the pleasure of knowing.
Yes.
And I just want, in honor of Spaces Archive and in honor of the inspiration and the dedication for the documentation of art environments, let's raise our glasses to the wonderful weirdos that we are.
So I've been asked to say just a few closing remarks tonight to get out of that. My name is Sam Gatmar. I'm the director at the John Michael Kohler Art Center. It has been so wonderful to be with you tonight and the past couple of days. In fact, thinking about how I might frame my feelings about just being together last night as I was trying to go to sleep, my head just so full of ideas and stories and wonderful times with people that I'd admired but never met, and people that I had only just met and immediately came to admire. I remembered a story a friend told me years and years ago. He was in the theater, and on one summer, he went to South Dakota to direct one of the passion plays that are done in South Dakota, the plays about the crucifixion, the death and resurrection of Christ. And he told me how the climax of the play was always the moment when Christ was on the cross and he's expiring, and one of the Roman soldiers reaches up with a spear and thrusts it into Christ's side and brings the whole drama to a climax and an end. And of course they had a prop spear with a spearhead that would retract into the shaft of the spear while spurting out a blood-like substance that made it all look realistic. So there's Christ on the cross one night, and he's expired, and the Roman soldier has a spear, and unfortunately he's grabbed the wrong spear and reaches up and gives it a thrust, and the actor playing Christ comes to life and says, "Holy cow, I've been stabbed!" And the poor Roman soldier, the man playing the Roman soldier in the spirit of the show must go on, looks up and says, "Yes, Jesus Christ, you have been stabbed." And he never told me about it, but I always imagined the scene taking the man who played Christ to the emergency room of the hospital. I mean, maybe he had to wait there for a while in his robes and crown of thorns, and maybe somebody asked him for healing while he was there, or can you imagine the moment when the doctor said, "You're going to need some stitches, but it's going to be okay"? I mean, it's just... So anyway, thinking about that and about how all those people handled that unexpected scene, I thought of how the unexpected is such an integral part of the work that we do, and how all of you not only handle that well, but seek it out with open eyes, open minds, and open hearts and with a deep commitment to preserving this work, making it available to the world, because it has such value and it's had such meaning for us. It's been so wonderful to be together, to be around people who I don't have to explain what an art environment is to, or explain what a self-taught artist is, and to hear your conversations and your enthusiasm. It's just been such a meaningful experience for me that I won't forget, and I'm so grateful that you've been here. So thank you all for coming. We look forward to one more day together, and then we all wish you safe travels and happy adventures as you continue in your good work.